Hey, Sophie.
Hey,
How
how
are
you
you? How's
doing?
things?
I'm excellent. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. So you're back at home. You've been on a bit of a trip, huh?
Yeah, I feel like going to London now does feel like a big trip. It's like going into the big smoke, and it's always so crazy because I'm now in my sweet little town in Portugal. But yeah, it was good. It's always good to like dive back into like the hustle and bustle and have good meetings, but then coming home and coming back to waves is obviously pretty amazing.
Yeah. And what were you doing over in London?
I actually went for a wedding, but I kind
Oh,
of
okay,
like
nice.
try and kill, what's that expression? A few birds with one stone. Like wedding, meetings, catch up with friends over there, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's always a pretty wild trip.
yeah. Was it good to be back? I've been back for ages now. It seems like.
It is good to be back. Like I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with London when I moved there, and I moved there specifically for work. Like I was like, cool, this is what I want to do. So I think the best place for me to start is in London. But I grew up
Yeah,
by the seaside a lot of my life, like in Greece, and spending a lot of my time in Portugal and was living here. And I went to high school and university in the UK, but was very much like not into big cities. And
yeah,
I found London really hard at the start, but then with so many amazing friends around, there's like so many great people to meet in London. So that softened the blow somewhat. But yeah, I
yeah.
like a few days of a city. Like now I'll go up to Lisbon and I love it. But then after like 3 or 4 days, I'm like, whew, I'm ready to go home to my cat and like be back in Lagos.
Even coming like I'm like 20 minutes from Lisbon, and it's sort of yeah. We went in on the weekend with the family and
Yeah.
stuff, and you go in and yeah, it's just it's just busy, isn't it? It's kind of like it's not as busy as London, but you just forget, right? And I think the whole maybe the lockdown thing get a bit more
Yes.
reclusive, and
It
yeah,
is good though. It's good to be like reinvigorated, and I enjoy knocking heads with like dynamic people, and like always make sure I like plan in different meetings kind of across the different areas of work that I straddle.
yeah,
I'm definitely a mix of two, like the small town vibe, and then like needing the injection of energy,
yeah,
inspiration, and like meeting other kind of like-minded people in the industry when you head to the big cities.
yeah. And so when you were like looking for work, then when you finished school,
Yeah.
did you move straight to London, or did you travel for a bit? What did you do?
So yeah, I took a year out, and I was just like living at home in Portugal with my boyfriend at the time. And then I went and did. I lost my dad really suddenly. He passed away, and I was just like, it kind of changed a lot of my plans. And then I thought, you know what? Like something was drawing me to the mountains. I was like, I think I'm gonna head out there and like learn to snowboard. And I went out there, and it was, as well as being pretty wild. Like, I mean, 18 years old, being in the Alps. I think anyone will testify. It's not the most wholesome place, but then it is. So I just like fell in love with the mountains and snowboarding, and then it was almost like a subliminal moment. Like I met a icon of the industry. I'm sure many people know Gumby, who's now running Man versus Wolf Beer, but he's been like a real stalwart of the snowboarding industry. And I met him, and I was working with him on his event back then called the Big Day Out, and I was 18. And I was like, wow, just like immediately like captivated by the energy of the industry, by how incredible snowboarding was. I mean, I was absolutely, pardon my French, shit to begin with. But I'm quite tenacious, so I like put in a lot of time so I could learn the sport and get a bit better. But I was just, yeah, I met so many amazing people then. And after that, I was like, cool. So I decided to go to university. And then after that, I moved to London. I was like, I'm going to start in London, and kind of like seek out my first job within the industry.
Yeah. Where did you go to uni?
Leeds,
Okay.
an amazing place. Like I actually still really miss it. Leeds is obviously a big city, and uh, I mean, I have a lot of different interests. It isn't just strictly action sports, and I love music. And yeah, Leeds is a very buzzing, amazing, vibrant, dynamic place. And
Yeah.
yeah, I had a really good time there. It was phenomenal. I've got a big love for the Northerners.
And then was factory. So that's where we met. And was that your first job in the city, or did you have something?
Well, I lived in Paris for a year, working in a very small boutique marketing agency, which was incredible. And then I was an intern at what was Vision 9. Sports Vision is now Vision 9.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was working on the now defunct Freeze Festival, which was in Battersea and was so amazing. And then Factory Media was my first proper job. Yeah. Aged 23, I think.
And you were working on like Cooler magazine, weren't you? With like Sam.
Yeah, I started it as a marketing assistant, and then I was working across some snowboard titles and Cooler, and I was doing sales. Like our old boss that hired me was like, "I think you would be good at that." And to be fair, it gave me a very good commercial understanding of the industry, but it's definitely not where my passion lay. Like I was like, I love to write, So at the same time as that, just kind of on the side after work, I'd be writing stories, and definitely credit Sam Haddad, who's still a very close friend of mine, who was the editor of Cooler, as being an amazing presence in my professional and personal life. She's a great a mentor-like figure. And she was really encouraging of me. And I just, fell in love with writing, but at the same time also the business side of working for a company like that, which then kind of like led me into my next role, which I'm sure you might ask me about. But yeah, it was Factory was great, wasn't it? We were such a like buzzing little team. I mean, for you were just surrounded by us. I remember just like, it was like myself. Were you there when Lauren Lidford was there? She's now like absolute boss lady in distribution, working with LibTech and others, Mervyn, Roxy. But yeah, we were just like wild little things in the office, I feel. Probably pestering you while you were trying to do your job.
Yeah, I just remember the whole time of sort of looking at all the like people. So they had offices, didn't they? Like in Germany, and then Paul was over in France, and just be stuck in London, just wishing I could go surfing. And I was like, oh God, I don't want to be like 5 hours drive or wherever it was to kind of that's
what I remember about you. Like, you look so much happier now because I think you live by the ocean, but you're always so serious, like looking at, like in your breaks, you'd be looking at like content of surfing, and just like I could sense the longing from you for sure. But yeah, I definitely made it work, because for me that was a big thing. Like, I was still kind of learning to surf then, and I then began to go like a lot of the weekends down to Devon, because one of our best friends had a house there, so we'd like get in the car on a Friday night and hot tail it down there. And yeah, definitely some of my best memories of living in London are going to Devon, surfing at the weekends. It was amazing.
It was almost like it's like an endurance test, isn't it? So you leave on like Friday, and then you're just surfing the whole time, and then going out afterwards, and then trying to get back like Sunday into it again on Monday.
Good times.
The whole proper like weekend warrior thing.
Exactly.
And then Oakley, like that was sort of where you went afterwards, right?
Yeah. So I was, sales definitely wasn't my thing, but I do appreciate the value it brought to my career. Also the people I met, and then helping me develop the side of my writing, which was such a passion and always had been. So I was really looking for a new job, and then I headed off to Oakley, and I always talk about my former boss there, and he's always so embarrassed because I'll always like share when I've like spoken about him. But Tom Cartmail, who now heads up Red Bull Media House in the US, and he was just I went straight into working with such an amazing team. Scott McMorris, who just left Oakley, he was there for a long time, and David Spires, and it was just everything I'd been looking for in a position. And I started in marketing and ended up in PR. But it was such an amazing team. I learned so much from Tom. It really was some of the best years of my career. And I was very, very happy to kind of have that next. It brought me a lot of fulfillment professionally and personally.
What did you like about it?
Well, to begin with,
it wasn't sales.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'd always been very interested in marketing, right? So when I lived in Paris for a year, I was working in marketing, and I loved events. Like I'd been an intern working in different action sports events since I was a teenager. So getting to work for a business as well that kind of, it wasn't strictly action sports. Like Oakley's bread and butter, to be honest, was performance sports like cycling.
Yeah.
And I joined just on the eve of the London Olympics. So could you imagine going straight into this incredible, vibrant, genius team, and that being your first project? It was unbelievable. Like the whole build up, you know, I started in January. The Olympics were in July, was it? And there was this incredible build up, like behind the scenes. Oakley were working on so many different activations in the run up to it. So I was like thrown in the deep end, but every single project we worked on was just eye opening, incredible. I was learning so much, you know, working really closely with our athletes, meeting all the different members of like the Oakley global team. We were so close as a team in Europe. And yeah, I was very, very quickly kind of thrust into that. And yeah, I mean, 2012 was just a really kind of golden year, I think, for working within the sports industry if you were in the UK. And
it was just a buzz, right? I mean, with the whole Olympics and
London put on such a good show, and Oakley did so many incredible projects. And getting to work with someone like Tom, where I put a lot of value in my career, and what's helped me really develop is having these mentor-like figures. So I kind of mentioned Sam Haddad at Kula. She'll also be probably super embarrassed because she's very modest if she watches this. But yeah, and Tom. You know, I place a lot of value on that and being able to learn from people like that in the industry. So having kind of been guided under Tom's wing, someone who was really such a genius, always had he was someone who I really kind of could relate to the way he thought. It wasn't just like two-dimensional static marketing. He was so creative, and I really enjoyed being a part of the creative process from the beginning, which is how I still work when I'm working now as a consultant, like within marketing, being there from the kind of point of conception of an idea, putting together the creative vision, seeing how that works across PR, communications, digital marketing, social, how you're leveraging athlete talent. So I really learned about that with him. And yeah, I was young when I was working there, I think maybe 25. So yeah, and I remember being responsible for the office, and I think I brought a lot of energy to the team. I think maybe it was mainly guys and myself, and yeah, I'm still good friends with all of them. And yeah, Oakley was just a great business to be a part of. Honestly, it was.
Yeah. And with the mentoring side of things, do you reckon that sort of happened organically, or was that sort of something you sort of did you think were you seeking it out, knowing that, you know, if you kind of learn from these people, then they kind of...
I was seeking it out because I've actually kind of had that precedent set for me since I was young. I know my dad had a very successful career, different industry. His last role was for Polaroid, also a marketeer, and he mentored a lot of people within his company. And then when I wanted to get into marketing, my sister's an amazing role model for me. Her last role, she was global head of communications at Chanel, across fashion, jewelry, watches, makeup. And having her when I was younger as a role model, and being really able to kind of help guide me and work through job applications, talk to me about what my interests were, because I knew I wanted to work within the sports industry, especially specifically action sports. And, you know, she was like, that's cool. You know, obviously it's quite niche as well, being in London, but yeah, I think you can always find a way. So having that early on definitely taught me the value of finding mentor-like figures. So that was definitely something I was looking for and that I knew I could benefit from. I think seeking wisdom from your elders, like, it's something you can't discredit. Like, it's a true thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And when did you kind of think, like, did you have an itch, would you say, back then when you were at Oakley to do your own thing, or did that sort of come a bit later?
Sounds a bit crazy, but I kind of knew at a young age that I definitely wanted to do my own thing at one point, and something that I felt could be to do something that makes people feel good, you know? So when I was at Oakley, I mean, I'm just like a sports nut, full stop, right? So like working within the industry, racing off to go surf in Devon, like consuming avidly, like all media, writing for sports magazines. Like I've done that my whole career now as a writer for 14 years. And yeah, wait, what was the question again?
We can go off on tangents, Sophie.
Yeah, I was just like, wow, I've been like writing that long. I feel old now.
Yeah, so like, did you kind of think like with the writing? So you were sort of doing that early on, right?
Yeah,
At, like a factory, and then sort of like freelancing, kind of doing that. Did you sort of think that, okay, like maybe were you thinking you could kind of push that and maybe do that sort of as a full-time gig potentially, or?
Well, I remember your question now. What led me to want to do my
own so thing? Kind of like wanting to kind of do your own thing, and
that fits into it. So with my passion for sport and sport business straddling different areas, I also qualified as a personal trainer whilst I was at Oakley, because I was just a fiend. Like I just love sport and fitness. So I was teaching after work, and you know, I was working in this gym where it was actually predominantly women. And I think back then, like when I was learning to surf or snowboard, there just still weren't that many girls doing it. And I think it's changed a lot now. It's like freaking amazing, isn't it? It's like it's different now for sure.
It's great. It needed to. It
needed to.
Kind of backwards, right? When you think about
backwards. But I could really see firsthand, you know, like the powerful physical and mental and emotional benefits of having a healthy, active life, and then also of sports like surfing, and thinking about how I really healed my grief from my father's death back in the mountains, and then learning to surf again, because I was learning to surf as a teenager, and then I was so like during my period of grief I was just like, it's like, you know, like hitting the party scene and just like not having a healthy lifestyle again, whereas that had brought me so much joy as a kid, and I was very athletic and on every team and learning to surf and just loved it. I was very involved in water sports. So I wanted to do something. I basically had like a vision to set up a business running retreats, and I thought that it definitely had legs. I definitely saw like a gap in the market for the type of thing I wanted to do, which was introducing girls and women to different sports, and kind of subtly being able to convey like, you know, how great, you know, immersing yourself within those lifestyles and the benefit of those sports are. So it's like surfing, depending on the location, surfing, climbing, horseback riding, mountain biking, yoga, hikes, like you name it. Healthy dose of going out and dancing at night, always important. So, and then with all my writing work as well, you know, I had different things that were kind of like requiring more of my time. And then Oakley organically was coming to an end. And I thought, you know, I'm going to take some time off. I've put in a good slog in the city and I definitely need to reset. So I went off traveling for just over half a year, which was amazing, just to go surf my brains out and just kind of recalibrate.
Where'd you go?
I started in Costa Rica, so I was living out there for a bit, and then I went to Panama, then I went into Colombia, and then Brazil, then Australia, and then Bali. So I did a bit of a funny around the world thing. And then came back, and I'd already established my brand, Mad to Live, whilst I was at Oakley. And it was a kind of like side project, side hustle. And then that was like my full focus when I got back, and it just, I put all my time into that, started running the retreats. But Mad to Live kind of sits on top of different things I was doing. So it basically encompassed the retreats, content production. I was working with other big businesses like the North Face, Sweaty Betty on, and then my work as a writer. So I kind of had this like umbrella over everything I was doing then, because I wanted to do all of them. I'm very passionate about the writing side of my work. I'm very passionate about working within business, especially marketing, communications, and brand management. And then obviously on the retreat side of it. So that was a more physical part of the job. That was very hands-on. I mean, I was living out of a suitcase for like 4 years. You know, I didn't have an apartment anywhere. I spent most of my time, I was beginning to transition back to Portugal, and then I was in Costa Rica and Morocco a lot of the time, and then traveling for work to other places. So
and that was like between retreats and then
between retreats,
between
yeah.
work.
So it was living pretty fast. But the retreats were amazing. And at the same time, I connected with a charity called the Wave Project, because I could just, you know, was kind of getting that like first-hand experience. And like, I've accumulated so many amazing stories from people who came on the retreats, and like, you just would see it happening in front of you, how like life-changing it was for them to learn to surf, or like put more time into surfing, or go somewhere new. And we always had this joke. I worked with this amazing woman on my retreats called Lucy, and we'd be like, we love it when people come here and dump their boyfriends or quit their job because they're miserable and they want to do something else, and then they do that. So you can really see the transformative effects, you know. And like years later now, like loads of my former clients moved to Lagos, or like they're still best friends. They are still surfing their brains out. They moved to other surf towns. So, and I really love working with kids. Like, I just love kids. So I reached out to the Wave Project, who are a Cornwall-based charity, and they help kids with anxiety and depression and other physical and mental disabilities by taking them surfing. And yeah, they've come on leaps and bounds. And I started working with them like ad hoc on different projects, like fundraising, almost as like an ambassador. I was like doing speaking events for them, helping them with some marketing. And yeah, that was, you know, I became a trustee for them last year, giving pro bono communications advice and marketing. And yeah, that was just kind of like the next organic transition of, you know, I was also doing that at the time. And I really enjoy that work so much, because I spent so much time with the kids at the charity, and it's really incredible, especially then seeing like how, you know, genuinely how much it can change someone's life for the better, how incredible, you know, blue health is. It's such a thing now, and that's just so amazing to see.
Nice. And like, do you see that like kind of growing then to different locations? Because are they just in the UK, or are they sort of
the retreats?
No, the Wave Project.
Oh, so yeah, the Wave Project are a UK-based charity, but there are other organizations globally doing very similar things. There's like Groundswell in the US, based in California. There's a really big organization based out in South Africa. I know in Australia, they've got like this neon surf community who do they wear like neon clothes and do like mental health surfs, and it looks like great fun. But yeah, I think, you know, they all kind of, the different organizations are all kind of like, we all speak to each other. So it's amazing seeing like the ripple effects of that ethos and all the incredible work these different organizations are doing. Also kind of entering the mainstream, like blue health is like known, like cold water immersion, like any kind of immersion into water and the benefits of it. And everyone's going mental over, like Wim Hof and everything. It's mainstream now, and surfing's definitely the popular kid in the room, you know, especially I think since the pandemic, just seeing the participation of it go like that. So yeah, I think people are becoming more conscious of how great it is to just get into the water.
Yeah. And it's not, and just to get out in nature as well, right? I mean, whether you're
just get out and
just to get out.
Exactly. That's what I always used to say as well. Like when I was working in the fitness industry, when I was working on Mad to Live a lot as well, I was teaching fitness, but I was doing a lot of work with clients, and I'd often just like take them to Hampstead Heath and like go for a swim in the pond and like train outside and like run into Epping Forest. And I really enjoyed that part, because for me as well, I was like, oh, hot damn, I'm in London again. Like, but I needed to do it to make money, because at that point I was doing Mad to Live, but I also needed to survive. And I also really enjoyed teaching fitness. But yeah, it's like finding new parts of cities where you can access green space and have your moments of peace. And just, even if it's like a 15-minute walk around the park, like in London just now, it's just by Hyde Park. And I was like, wow, it's like, it's so beautiful. And I was staying on Victoria Park. I used to live on Victoria Park, and was like, man, it's so beautiful in autumn. Like I went for this run and was like, it's like the happiest person ever, like running like Phoebe from Friends through the park, like, so beautiful.
And how is it now? Like, are you in Portugal? Would you say like that's kind of your main like residency at the moment? Like,
Yeah,
over in Lagos?
Yeah, like I'm in the UK quite a lot. Like this year I had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life. I got married, I was renovating the house, so I've been spending a lot of time here, but I still like to consider myself kind of split between places. I think I'll always be like that, because like I said at the beginning, I like to have that like yin and yang of like a piece of a smaller town, but needing that injection of inspiration and like knocking heads with other creatives in big cities.
Yeah. Nice. And with the kind of like the inspiration, what you've been like, I guess working on, it's almost been around, well, it's been around like sports and outdoors, and kind of I guess getting more people, more women involved within within these sports, right? Would you say that's kind of been like an underlying theme, I guess, in like?
It's a good question. The underlying theme, I think,
if there is one,
there's 100% an underlying theme, and it's all kind of feeding into the nucleus of that. And basically, like it started when I was like learning these sports, and then also working at factory, and it was very male dominant then, the industry, and it was the time of pink it and shrink it with brands, and like I remember some instances being like, oh, there's no business in women's. And I was like, you guys are freaking insane. And this was like before, for example, like the fitness industry exploded and brands like Lululemon just went completely stratospheric. I was like, guys, like we are on the cusp of something major here. Like, yes, there is business in the women's side. So I was always like flying the flag for that and like firmly believed it. So my belief has been like in championing and pushing and developing the women's side of the businesses, encouraging women to participate in sports, and just trying to push it from like those kind of different angles, like that's always been my kind of vision, dream, and like hopes and desires with work. Obviously I don't just specifically work on women's, like I work with brands and it's across all sexes, but that's somewhere where I have vested interest and passion. And then equally as a storyteller in journalism, like I'm so passionate about finding unique and different stories about people, especially women. So right now I'm the women's editor at Wavelength magazine, and it's been amazing. Like been working on it the last year and had like a specific remit to do more female storytelling, and like
nice.
I love to hunt out those like very different and interesting characters with like unique stories to tell. Because I think, again, like the action sports industry used to be very two-dimensional, it's very white, very blonde. And I'm like, it's incredible to see now the state of it, like all these amazing different athletes and characters and talents. And they're not from just like one specific look and feel, which was boring. And it's so important as well for businesses to channel financial support into diverse athletes, because many people don't have the ability or facilities to make it as an athlete, even if they're super talented. Like you need financial backing from brands, you need sponsorship. So I'm like finding these people and like championing their stories is so important, I think, within media. So that's been really, really great. I really enjoy doing that. And again, that kind of feeds into the nucleus of my whole why, I guess.
And you're also podcasting as well. How are you finding that?
Yeah. Do you know what? I like always wanted to do my own podcast. Sometimes I'm like, Sophie, what are you doing? Because often the things I'll sit on mentally that I'm like, I really want to do that. I really want to do that. Always end up being the best thing. And I'll like leave it for years. But the podcast has been awesome. Like I absolutely love it. My current guest is Steph Gilmore. So it's really cool to chat to her after her 8th world title and chew the fat. And it's been a great first season. So I've got some pretty big ideas for it. Again, feeding into that narrative of like female storytelling, finding unique different characters. And it's not just like it's not just, you know, athletes who surf in WSL. It's like free surfers, people are doing interesting work within conservation and the environment, big wave surfers, people who've pushed for diversity. And yeah, I think, it's been a really, really great series. Had some awesome guests and excited to see where it goes next.
That's cool. And instead of sort of like keeping it that whole sort of, like training for winning a championship and how you doing that, it just gets a bit samey, right? It's just kind of if you're going on these different
I
finding these different stories is sick.
I mean, you know, you're a podcast host. It is cool when like so many people do have fascinating stories, right? And I really love getting into them and really finding out more about the like psyche of the person. And so with Steph, it's like what exactly she was thinking on the day she won her 8th world title. What was exactly happening in her mind? And like everything she told me was like so interesting, you know, and I just love getting into that.
Awesome. And so where do you think you're going to go with Mad to Live, like with all these different things? So with the writing, with the podcasting, with the retreats, what are you thinking like you focus on kind of?
So I always have my fingers in a few pies for work. So right now I'm doing a consultancy for a really, really awesome sustainable swim and activewear brand that I've been working on this year. And like last year I was headhunted by New Era Cap to work as their head of PR and music for a maternity contract. It was the first time I'd like worked full time for another business again in years. I just forgot how much I enjoyed working for other businesses as well. So since then, I've been doing a lot of consultancy work. I really enjoy that. So I've been working for this sustainable swimwear brand, and it's been amazing understanding more about innovations in sustainable fabrics. And they're kind of like they're a cause-led business, and they give back with each purchase. So they have a really interesting model. You know, it's great working on a startup, again, kind of like really being able to impact the creative processes and marketing through many different angles. So that's been really cool. But I'm also launching a new business and I've been very busy with that. It's been ticking along in the back for a year, but it's actually a CBD company. So we're just about to launch, and it's targeted towards women, and it's kind of providing a lot more understanding around like the life cycle of women. So there's a PMS product, a menopause product, and then a general sleep-aid anxiety one. But we're really proud of it. We think it brings something really unique to the market. I've never launched a product before. So that's been
what's it going to be? Is it like gummies or like?
Oh wait, I can actually show you one right
drops?
now. No, look, here's one I made earlier. It's so beautiful. So it's tincture. So it's you take it under your tongue. But so we're working on that, and that's launching in a few weeks. And I've got an amazing silent partner who we went to the idea with. He's a biochemist who runs one of Europe's biggest CBD companies, and with an institute in Denmark who does a lot of research around cannabis and different studies. So it's really cool working with them because they're very research and science backed. And I think CBD, as we've seen, even in the UK, it's definitely an industry that's really exploding. Lots of athletes use it topically as well. It's like balms and in recovery. So I think we've got something quite unique to bring to the market. And for me, it's like, you know, it's again, feeding into kind of like helping and supporting women. This is a totally new thing for me.
Are you going to try and combine worlds and try and get like with that sort of like adventure side and action sports? Do you think you kind of bring that in, or is it going to be like a separate?
I think it's quite separate, because this is more like holistic health, which I think is a very important side of that. So I feel like that can just organically feed into that. So that's kind of like my baby I've been working on, and now it's we're about to launch. So I've been spending a lot of time.
So it's been a year, right?
Yeah, ticking by for a year behind the scenes, but now I'm pouring a lot of time into it, and then continuing my consultancy. And then with Mad to Live, I'm very focused on working with Wavelength and with my podcast. I also write for Surf Girl. I'm starting working with another global sports title, which I'm really excited about. So I think I have a great friend, Hannah Bailey. You probably know her. She's such an icon within the industry and does such amazing work. But we always wanted to start our own magazine. We've been like dreaming about it for like 12 years. So hopefully one day maybe that would happen. But yeah, I really I like to work on different things. I've got my set days when my time is focused and split, you know?
Yeah.
So today is actually like magazine day, it's podcast day. And then tomorrow I'm working on my client. So I do really enjoy that. Again, like sometimes, you know, different opportunities come up. I had a big opportunity this year to work for a huge business, heading up being global head of surfing, but it wasn't quite right timing. It would have necessitated a move somewhere that I couldn't do. But, you know, my ears are open. You never know what's going to happen. And that's what I enjoy about this whole ride as well.
Yeah. And how are you pretty strict with kind of like calendar and things like that? Or you kind of, I get super distracted unless I kind of like, if it's in the calendar and I've written it down, then, you know, otherwise.
Yeah, I try to be. I think if you're doing a couple of things, you really have to be. Like, I'm massive on to-do lists. Like every Monday, I'm like, you know, and I've got to do that for sure. Otherwise, things would be confusing. So yeah, I would say I'm very strict about it.
Kind of have to. Yeah. And so like now, like with the CBD brand, are you launching it? Are you trying to like, is it going to be online? Is it going to be trying to get it in stores? So
we're starting with the D2C launch. So just via our website to begin with. And we're launching, our main marketing launch is going to be in the UK. However, the product ships in Europe and the UK. And I think, ultimately, I would like to see it like dream retailers would be someone like Liberties, you know, like I think bringing the benefits of CBD to, you know, like wider audiences, especially for women, and understanding how CBD can support them in the different cycles, their different, you know, their menstrual cycle, the different cycles of their life is something we really want to convey and also educate about. You know, so many women are in the dark about all of that. So that's like one big cause of like why we're doing it. So yeah, right now it's web, and I definitely would like to get it into retailers and like smaller specialist retailers. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, how's all is the surf been pretty wild? It must be. It's not too far down south from where we are here. Like it's been crazy, right? Last couple of days.
Yeah, I think I was away. I haven't been to the West Coast yet. We had a couple of local waves yesterday, but small, glassy. I think it's about to get really big here, but I know on the West Coast it's been pretty bonkers. And up at Nazare, I just interviewed Joana Andrade, who's Portugal's, Portugal's big wave surfer, who's up at Nazare, and yeah, she was just about to drive over there when I spoke to her last week, and I've seen some of the footage they put out, so it looks like it's going off, right? It's definitely big on the West Coast.
Yeah, it's been mad. What did Joanna say about the whole kind of? Does she see more women getting into big wave surfing?
Yeah, do you know what? I actually asked her that. I was like, where, especially in Portugal, I'm like, cool. Yeah. Like, I feel like Nazare is a wave that's almost synonymous with external athletes from other countries. Right? They've like kind of
more like Maya and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. And then I'm like, Joanne, you know, like what she's done there is incredible. And she has an amazing film out right now, Big versus Small, which is why I interviewed her. So if you haven't watched it, highly recommend it. It's so beautifully done. But yeah, she thinks, you know, obviously it's incredibly niche. Like, number one, big wave surfing, like even if you're a surfer, there's only going to be a small percentage of people who will want to go off to Nazare and surf 60+ foot waves, right? So I think that's important. And then also, like I think the financial support is even more expensive. Like finding a surfboard, if you're from a lower income family, that's going to be hard in itself to begin with, let alone finding a jet ski and the whole team. Because it's not just you in big wave surfing, right? You have a team and that's vital, and like the safety team and all that. So I think that's also a critical element. But I was like, we want to see more Joannas sending it at Nazare, you know, more Portuguese women. So, but there are some amazing athletes from Portugal, girls who are kind of out there right now, like Yolanda Hopkins has been absolutely killing it on the professional circuit, and there are some younger girls who are more interested in it. So I'm sure under Joanna's wing, they'll probably do pretty well.
Yeah, and this kind of, I guess that's across most like across board sports, right? You're kind of just seeing more like kids and girls, like super young girls, like in skate parks, and it's taken off, which is great.
It's amazing. Like, I just wrote this article about like the top 5 next Groms to watch out for, and it's like looking at their videos and pictures, like girls like Erin Brooks and Sierra Kerr and Katie Simmers, who's just qualified.
She's just qualified, right?
Yeah. I think she's going to be like, she's like the next Steph or Carissa, you know. I think her and Betty Lou Sakura are going to dominate. Like the next 10 years, it's going to be. I do think Carissa's probably, like Steph was saying on my podcast, she's probably got another 10 world titles in her, you know. Like Carissa Moore's definitely also going to still be in contention. But those younger girls are absolutely insane. And it's not just how they take to the air, like all the aerials they do. The men have obviously been doing that for a while longer, but the girls are now also catching up to that. And then how they surf in big waves, like these 12-year-old girls, like in the Mentawai and like out in Indonesia, and like big wave surfing as well. There's like some girls out in Hawaii surfing sunset who are 11 years old, and you're like, that is just wild. It's incredible. Incredible.
It's good. And how was your? So you're in the Mentawais for your honeymoon, weren't you? Speaking of Mentawais, how was that?
Well, I got really injured, so my kind of big surf trip turned more into a lie around and eat pasta and drink cocktails trip, which wasn't
which
too
is
bad,
also good.
Which was also good. But when I was there, it coincided with like the biggest swell they had in 5 years. So we were literally like opposite telescopes. Well, the first break in front of our house was suicides, and then a little boat trip was telescopes. So I was surfing telescopes before it got huge and before I got injured. And being there and like sitting in the channel on the boat watching telescopes that day, it was like all over different surf media websites. They called it like Scary Saturday. It was hilarious.
Just sitting on the boat and like, being, like we're in the swell line.
I was with
freaky,
this lovely,
right?
There was a really awesome family from Hawaii at the resort when we were there. They're all pros, 3 kids. The dad's like was a windsurf pro. They're just like the coolest family on earth. But I was with the younger daughter, and she was just like, it was like so scary in the boat, you know, because sometimes you think maybe the wave's gonna come get you, but it was wild. Again, like seeing the local kids who live out there in stand-up spitting barrels like for 10 seconds. You're just like, it was like another world of anything I've seen in surfing. So it was amazing. I really love meeting all the local people out there I met. Like everyone's so cool. It's a really interesting place. I definitely was pushed to kind of new limits with my own surfing. So interesting, the kind of reef breaks there, and just kind of getting familiar with like the speed of which the waves pick up over the reef as well. So I was a bit unlucky to get injured. It was like the last wave of a 3-hour session. So I was just like, oh, damn it, you know, like I was super annoyed. So yeah, I did a bit of exploring once I could walk again, because my leg was pretty buggered. But it was all right. I've healed up. I'm back in action again now.
Nice. Well, good. And so what's the best way if people want to reach out to you? When they get in contact?
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess Instagram's a pretty good way, at Sophie Mad to Live. And yeah, just give me a shout there. DMs. I tend to check them quite regularly. Always a good way to catch me.
Good stuff. Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on. It's been awesome catching up, and I'll have to come down to Lagos this winter and go for a surf down there. That'd be cool.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me as a guest. It's been awesome to chat, and yeah, definitely come down for a visit. It's so good in the winter.
Yeah. Cheers.